Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for coming to this session. And it's, I think, a great day to be here at Hilbert learning. And this session is going to talk today about equipping all learners with 21st century skills. And a lot of what I'm going to talk about is the Tools of Engagement project. And it is on-demand discovery learning professional development. I see a mix in the room of some people who know about the project and some who I'm not sure if you know about the project. So to those that are familiar, I may be a little bit redundant in some of the things that I'm talking about. But please ask questions as I'm going through, and hopefully we can get everybody at the same understanding about what we're talking about here. So my name is Robin Sullivan. I'm an online learning specialist and an instructional designer with the Center for Educational Innovation at the University of Buffalo. And if you ever need to look me up in the UB directory, you do need to find me under Roberta. That's my legal name. Robin is just a nickname. But thank you for coming here today. I do have the slides up on the web, so you can access them for a later reference, and there are a couple links in there that you might want to access. I'll give you the link afterwards, but I always put the presentations on the project website after I'm done, so everybody should have my business card if you want to contact me, and a card that gives you access to the Tools of Engagement site, and you can find the presentations up there as soon as I do. So the address, if anybody wants to write it down, is bit.ly, so it's bit.ly/epictope. And so the Tools of Engagement project, the main objective of the project is to encourage faculty and staff to explore and reflect on the use of freely available emerging technology tools to infuse technology into the pedagogy. And it's mainly an online website, so it's accessible any place, anytime, any device. And it has a focused set of resources. So we try to share resources about using technology tools and how they relate to teaching and learning. We've had a design team. This is the project has been in place for about 5 years. And we are transitioning it to a MOOC that will be accessible to all learners, faculty, staff, students, professionals, pre-professionals, anybody with an interest to learn how to use technology tools for today's society. We've had a design team over the years, including some of the people in this room, who have served as fellows and participants who've tried to take the billions of tools that are up there and available online and narrow them down to here's a couple of the most appropriate tools that are popular, that are usable, and that might be sustainable. And we've provided resources and links to those tools and to supporting tutorials through the website. But the project itself, it's not an online course. So it's something that you go to the website and you do a discovery. So based on your interest, you pick and choose which areas of the site you're interested to learn about. So it's not something that we say you have to go in this direction. And even if you choose, I'm interested to explore how to use video or flipped learning, you can go to those sections, and then within the page, again, it's discovery. We don't expect the person on the page to go through every single resource on the page. Just cherry pick. What are the items that you want to access? Some of the underlying principles of Toep is that we support lifelong learning. Because today, everybody needs to have the idea that whatever you learn in school, that's only the tip of the iceberg. You learn things beyond the formal educational environment. And the way that technology changes, it changes rapidly. So something that might be the go-to tool this morning, this afternoon, it might not be available, or something else became available that's much more useful to you. So you need to be able to find things on your own, evaluate a tool, and find out if it's appropriate for you or your students to meet those learning objectives that you identified. And together through the Toep community, we talk about how to find solutions for the problems that you're facing. Some of the impetus behind the project, in today's universities, colleges, we were very much reliant on old teaching methods, kind of what I'm doing here, the very passive, talking at you. And we need to kind of help move our classrooms into a more active, a participatory environment. And using some of the tools that are available today, we can do that. So this is just a little bit of a play. When I was growing up, I had a rotary Fisher-Price phone pulled behind with a string. That was my heavy technology tool. Today we have, in the restaurants, you have the little kids, kind of teething on the phone before they can even speak and using it as a tool to understand, communicate, and create. One of the other trends that seems to be a little not as critical, the 3 R's are not as critical as what the 4 C's are today. So the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. I'm not trying to say that we don't need to read, write, and do math. But the 4 C's, the 21st century skills, which include communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking, those are very critical in a learner today and in a person in society. And that's what we're trying to do with this project, is to encourage the creation or the development of these 21st century skills. Just an example, some of the prominent industries out there, or Google, Microsoft, there's studies out there that say if they had candidates that were applying for positions, one has a really high IQ, one has a really creative way of thinking outside of the box. The outside of the box person is the one that they will consider hiring because they can think of things differently. So being able to encourage creativity is something that's really important, and using the technology tools is something that will help nurture that creativity. So the way that the Tools of Engagement project works, and I should say worked, because we've just completed our 5th year of the project, and we will be transitioning to a new MOOC that is going to be based on the Toep model. It is not going to be Toep, but it will be a new way to think about it, trying to address everything that we've learned in these past few years to make improvements. Toep is a website that is still up on the web. It plans to still be up even after we create the MOOC. But as you know, the technology changes. So as some of the technology tools that are maybe highlighted on the Toep site, as they go away or change or become outdated, we'll just be going into the site and hitting the delete button. And one day, I'm sure that site is probably going to have no resources left on it. But for the very near future, that Toep site will still be available. But the process that was involved in Toep, we had an incentive award period that ran throughout the academic year. And so in about October, we had campuses across the SUNY system, had about half of the campuses over the course of the 5 years that participated. And so they would have some fellows, I can see a couple fellows here, who encouraged the campus to get involved, to participate. Sometimes they just had small learning communities that formed within the campuses or within the departments. And they got some people together who participated in this year-long process. So somebody would come to the Toep site, they would register. The first thing they would do would be to go through the lifelong learning section. So it was just a section that had resources about what does it mean to be a lifelong learner, how can you promote yourself as a lifelong learner, what are some of the important traits, and please come in. Sneak right on in.
sit in the front row here. Sorry.
So after someone went through one of the sections, for example, the lifelong learning section, they would then go to our Google Plus community, and they would post a reflection. What did you learn or what did you discover through that information that you read on the site? And then it was encouraged that all the other participants in the community, we have about 800 in there right now, not all participating, many lurkers, they would comment back and say, oh, we have this in common. Oh, I agree with that, and here's how my perspective is. After they posted a reflection in the social network community, they would then be able to claim a digital badge saying that I went through the lifelong learning section, or I went through the video section, or the section on blogs and wikis, and I've successfully completed the reflection. We then gave out digital badges. So then throughout the academic year, if somebody earned at least the lifelong learning, that was required of everyone, and then they were able to select 3 of the additional sections. I'll go through a list of what they all are in a second. They did those activities, and then at the very end of the academic year, posted a summary reflection. What did the entire process mean to them? What did they learn? And what can they tell us as the project team? How can we improve it? If they did all that, they would then get their Toep Mastery Badge. And those digital badges are something that they can put on their LinkedIn page, share in their email signature, put on their CV, whatever they wanted to do with that. We then had a voting process where everybody that was in the community did a survey, kind of a voting survey monkey, and said, okay, so maybe Donna had some of the most innovative ideas about how to use these technology tools in relation to teaching and learning. She might be awarded one of the Toep certified badges. Along with the Toep certified badges, we had a small bit of funding to share with award incentives. So the first place awardees were able to earn $300 worth of conference funding to spend through the SUNY Center for Professional Development. We also had a number of second place awards that were issued for peer support. So I'm just going to pick on people I know their names. So if Beth was in there and she was giving great support, great advice to her colleagues, in that voting process, she might be the one that would win. And I think you maybe did.
I did.
She is. So she is one of our second place awardees for community peer support. So that's how the process ran, and it's modified over the years. And any questions about it at this point? I'll keep telling you more, but anything that's sticking out right now? Okay, keep going on. This is a screen grab of the current Tools of Engagement website, and you can see that, keep an eye on this link right here, so information about the MOOC that is coming in 2018, early 2018. You can keep an eye on that to find out when it's going to be available. We're also interested to hear any suggestions. So after you learn about the site today and you go to the Toep site and you say, oh, when you do a MOOC, you should do this. We really want to know so that we can address what is perceived as something that can be improved. The Toep site is, the URL is pretty easy to remember. So you have now a little business card. Whenever you have an urge to learn, you can whip out that card and just go to the site. And hopefully it'll point you to the MOOC site. When we have that MOOC available, it'll give you that option. But it's the SUNY URL, suny.edu/Toep. And the acronym, if you think, look at your big toe, don't look at mine, but so Tools of Engagement was the name of the project. And we decided that TOE was not a really good acronym, so we put a P on the end of it. But that might get the URL in the brain to memorize so that any time of day or night you can't sleep and you want to learn about how you might incorporate a blog into your lesson or something else, you can go to that site. Okay, so this is one of the discovery activity pages, and this list is a list of the discovery activity, we call them tool categories. So I'll read some of them off. It's maybe not as clear. So we have audio and video, blogs and wikis, collaborative spaces like Hangouts and Skype, e-portfolios, gamification, mobile apps, OER, photos, presentations, productivity tools like calendaring and Google Docs, resource libraries, simulations, and social media. So those were the ones that somebody can pick 3 of these to do the discovery activities in order to be considered for the award incentives. Each of the sections kind of started out the same way, where we had just a tiny little blurb, what does it mean to use audio in a teaching environment, followed by an extended audio presentation trying to use the media and model good practices. Of course, according to our keynote, the text transcription is available, so it's accessible to anybody, regardless of how your preferred learning style is. And then in each section, there was a read more that would take you to additional resources. And that's usually where the meat of the project was at. So we would give you information about some of the easy-to-use audio recording tools, SoundCloud, Audacity. We'd point you to some of the best tutorials on how to use those tools. We would maybe share some examples about how they could be used in a lesson to create a story or for interviewing others in the experts in the field. And then also in each section is some discovery activities. We usually gave a choice of 2, and so we wanted the participants to do something hands-on. We didn't want them just to read and say, oh yeah, I did it. We said explore some audio sharing sites, subscribe to a couple podcasts. Once you do that, then make your reflection. Or create some audio. Record yourself. Pick up your phone, pick up your computer speaker, and create some audio and use it in your class or use it in some way. And then you would be able to go in and, come on in, John. That's okay.
Yeah, take my seat. I'm here with Albert now, too. Yeah, all right.
So you would be able to do the discovery exercise, post to the community in Google+, and then you would be able to claim a badge. Badges are on hold at this point for this semester, and they'll be re-available in the MOOC that we launch. And this screen is just an image of the Toep community. So it's a Google site. If you're familiar with Facebook, it's very similar. Somebody would come in, they would be accepted into the community if their campus was participating. And campuses did have to buy in the past 2 years in order to sustain the incentive model and keep those resources up to date. We had to find some way to pay for people's time and pay for those incentives. So if you were a part of a participating campus, you had the extra benefit of being allowed into the community and the extra benefit of being able to compete for those incentives. So as you did your discovery on the activities, you would come in and say, okay, I just explored the productivity tools, used Google Docs in my class, and here's what I did, and then other people can comment onto the post. Another complaint or a feature of Toep that was not well accepted was that Google, okay, I can put it in a single word. If you look at just the SUNY campuses, we have 64 campuses, and each of those 64 campuses has a different way of approaching Google Apps for Education at their campus. For example, UB gives a Google account to each student who has access to docs and calendars and one more piece, docs, calendars, and Gmail. Most important one actually for the campus from their point of view. But then faculty and staff, we don't have access. So we would have to, if we wanted to use Google tools, even Google Doc in relation with our students, we had to go outside of our university-supported IT, create that Google account, and then use it. And you can imagine, is anybody in here from IT? No? Okay. And then there's many campuses in SUNY that had no adoption of Google+. They might be a Microsoft campus and choosing to use another tool. And even just many people were leery of their privacy in relation to Google. So one of the things that's going away in the MOOC that we will be launching is the Google+ community. That doesn't mean we're getting rid of the community. We're just changing the platform. So the platform in the MOOC will be Coursera-based. It will be, the conversations will be done through discussion forums. So we're gaining some and losing something else. We are gaining the ability that everybody's going to be on the same playing field. We're not going to have 128 or different variations on how we get somebody started. Just go to Coursera, create an account, and access the discussions. Things that we'll lose, this is nice and visual, and it's easy. You're probably familiar with Blackboard discussion forums. You can just kind of think of the way that an online social network works. It's encouraging, it's inviting. So we're hoping that the content within the Coursera discussions will be as supportive and inviting. I don't think we're going to be able to manage getting it as visual. All of the posts that went into Google+, 98% of them, somebody chose to add some kind of visual. Whether they just put in a link, oh, I'm from NASA, and the picture of the NASA website would show up. So that's one thing that again, if you have any suggestions, please go to the Toep site and let us know. We would be interested to hear. So that's going to be one of the changes. And I just want to give you a little bit of demographics about the project. So each year we put out a system-wide call. The project started, actually it started not as Toep, but I had used an assignment similar with my students in the Graduate School of Education. And the students loved the autonomy, saying, here, go and learn, and then share your learning with your classmates. So that was really positive. Presented at SUNY CIT, somebody in the audience said, hey, that would be great for faculty. That was 5 years ago. And so at that time, we got together and wrote a collaborative SUNY IITG grant. And about 5 campuses got together, and we had faculty, instructional designers, librarians who all collaborated on the development. Since that point, SUNY became a supporter of the project, and they had provided us some funding to keep it going. But then we had to move to the model where we asked campuses to buy in. And that was not a sustainable model either. Just getting a campus to kind of come up with, it was not a great amount. It was about $1,000 for a non-SUNY campus to come in. And we had about half of the SUNY campuses that became involved. But the community, it was full of people from all different disciplines. That in itself was great because you had a math teacher talking to a Shakespeare expert. Normally they wouldn't have much to compare notes about, but in this community you're somewhat anonymous. Sure, some people put a picture in there, some people put a picture of a flower in there to represent who they were, but it didn't always have. This is a departmental administrator talking to a new adjunct faculty. So it was a little bit anonymous. So we had multiple disciplines talking together, different levels of faculty, staff, and administrators, and a variety of academic ranks. Some of our pre- and post-survey results. There was a large extent of faculty that had 10 plus years experience that I was a lot of them are tenured and they didn't really have to be in there learning, but they were the majority of the people that were registering. And all types of experience levels. So across the years, we had people coming back. So they'd learn a little bit, and then they'd come back and share more. People with a lot of experience in using technology tools would join, and they would be support mechanisms for people that were just learning. Okay, so this is just a little bit of a graph showing, so the first year of the IITG funding, we had 5 campuses that were involved. That was back in 2012. The second year, we were able to get the top tier of ITG funding, and we pulled in 10 campuses, and there was no charge to the campuses then. The third year, we kind of just ran on a shoestring. You know, a little bit of the budget that was left over, we somehow pulled together some incentives, but we still were able to run with 11 campuses. And then these 2 years are when we got SUNY CPD support, and support from the campuses who bought in. Last year we had 22 different campuses, including a non-SUNY campus. We had Madai join us. And just looking at the website analytics, there were a lot more people accessing the site than those who were joining the community. Many, many more from all over. So what did the participants say? We've been doing some qualitative analysis on the summary posts, and we are that close to getting the article out the door about those results. And I'm just going to share some of the highlights with you. So one thing that we found, so we had 2 different researchers, students in the Graduate School of Education, who kind of culled through the summary posts, and they highlighted just different trends of what people were saying and tried to classify them into different buckets. And the 3 themes, the 3 buckets that rose to the top in those summary posts, the one that's at the very top is the faculty and staff who were participating said that they had many of them commented that they had immediately used the tools while they were participating in the project, and if they didn't use them in relation to they used them in relation to their teaching. If they didn't use them directly in that academic year, they talked about their plans to do so in the future. The next item that came up, the second most common theme, is that vicarious learning through the experiences of others. So as one person might say, oh, well, when I do flipped learning, here's how I approach it, and here's the way that I bring the activity into my classroom. Or if I use blogs in a lesson, here's the rubric that I use. And so other people are saying, oh, well, that's great. And it was a great sharing opportunity. So the second theme is that people were learning from each other, and that was great. That's what we wanted. And then the third finding that was most common is that people expressed a continued desire to learn even after the project was over. So we tried in a lot of different ways to measure, okay, so how important are these incentives? A lot of people would say, oh, incentives don't matter to me. But when I look at what they said compared to what the numbers were saying, it seemed to be very different. But many people, even after the academic year is over, they were back in the community. They were accessing the site. I even had a faculty who told me, oh yeah, I'm not active in the community anymore, but I sit there and I filter every post into an email folder, and that's how she starts her morning. That was great. So here's a partial image of the badges. So we have the Toep Mastery Badge. If you do the lifelong, the 3 of your choice in a summary, you would get the Mastery Badge. A few select. At the beginning phases, we were able to give out larger awards, and I think there were maybe, I don't remember, maybe $1,000 or so. So we only had 2 or 3 or so first place awards in the last incentive. The second place peer support badge. Everybody got the lifelong learning badge if they were in there and they went through that activity. And then here's, I think we have about 20 of the other types of badges. Simulations, gamification, online learning, etc. Just want to share some information about those badges. Phase 2 was when we had the most grant support, and also the fellows at each campus were supported the best in phase 2. So we can see that they had a lot of activity and a lot of badges were claimed, and I attribute that a lot to the effort on the individual campuses. I was never in New York City saying, come into Toep. That was all due to the people that were at the campus. Sometimes they were faculty, sometimes they were administrators of the Teaching and Learning Center or librarians, accessibility experts, but they were the ones that were kind of encouraging people into the project. And then in phase, we had only 5 campuses here and 22 campuses there. And this is the phase where we had like barely any incentive funding to go on, phase 3. Also, I just want to share the numbers of lifelong learning badges that were given out compared to those who completed. So we don't have, I should probably figure out another part of this graph of registrants. So there were many more who registered who were just lurkers. And they probably did not even bother getting the lifelong learning. And then once they, even if they did go to claim the lifelong learning badge, they might have fizzled out after that. It was not a class credit where their transcript was going to get anything, any marks. So it's just like, we're going to have that same problem in the MOOC. I don't know if it's going to be exacerbated or not. But those who start may not always finish. But here's how many Toep Mastery badges, and these coordinate to the phases, community, and then the Toep Certified, the first place awards. And you can see in phase 1 we had a whole lot more awards to give out than we did towards the end. This just shows the top badges. And Donna, I think you raised this question once. What are some of the sections that are most sought after? And video, I always thought it just seemed to me that the video was always in the conversation. Something about media, whether people are talking about TED Talks or how to create videos of their own. It was second most popular in phase 2. It was still number 4 in phase 4. What was interesting is presentations is the top in both of those first couple of years. Faculty are probably most comfortable. That's the technology that is used regularly, right there. And then social media, I was surprised to see up in there. In phase 3, we added a couple things that were new. And one of those that was added that's new was mobile apps. And that became the most sought after badge. In the last year, again, these were 2 new phases with sections, discovery activity sections. Information about learning was the top. Flipped learning was the second. And online learning, I think it was just a little bit below the top 4, is another new section that we added. And then presentations shows up on all 4. So, what's going to be new? What are we changing? We have some new round of SUNY IITG funding. Again, a top tier award. And so we're going to try to address some of those challenges that we discovered in Toep. And some of them I talked about. So probably the biggest change is that it's not going to be just a website with a separate community. It's going to be a Coursera-based MOOC. SUNY is one of the Coursera partners, so we are able to go in and create a MOOC. And so we have some support through them. They have some great materials to support building that MOOC, so that will address the multiple platforms that are needed and give us some place to have discussions. Those discussions will be targeted. So by that I mean in the Google Plus community screen, I didn't show you on the side, somebody could filter and just show, I want to see all the conversation about video. But it wasn't really evident. So people just saw them all together, and that kind of confused people. In Coursera, we'll be able to create a discussion forum, and it will be based more on objectives. So that was another large criticism of the project. Technology tools of engagement project. We always focused on the tools. So there is a great website that is posted called Pedagogy First, and they do something similar to Toep. We do a lot that's different, but we're borrowing some of their ideas. So what they do is they have a list of objectives. What might you want a student to accomplish? Maybe you want them to raise awareness. Maybe you want them to connect with a partner. Maybe you want them to communicate or tell a story or be creative. So that's how we're going to drill down in the new Coursera MOOC. And I'll show you a screen that will kind of show that a little bit better. But that's going to be one of the big differences. You'll choose your pedagogical objective and then drill down to the tools. And keep in mind, this new MOOC is going to be for everyone, not just faculty. Well, actually, Toep was for faculty and staff, but the language was addressed about teaching. So this new MOOC is going to be how do you use these technology tools to succeed in today's society, a 21st century learner. Another item that is going to be changed, the ability to update those resources. We had to have the fellows each year spend a couple days going through the resources, combing through, and needless to say, we would still go a couple of days or a month or so, and this link isn't working, or this is an old product, or so in order to kind of alleviate that, the new site will be wiki-like. So inside of Coursera, we are building wiki content that we have a great student from NASA who's helping us with the programming. And I'm hoping that the world will help crowdsource the best materials. When you are in the site, you'll be able to say, oh, that's a good one, and you'll be able to give it a thumbs up. Or you'll see this Google site tutorial that's based on an older version, and you'll say, oh, no, this is not good, and you can give it a thumbs down. And so based on the crowd rating, those resources will float to the top or to the bottom. Even just the grammar's not my strong suit, so somebody will be able to be in there and say, hey, let's change the wording of this. And just like Wikipedia, we may have people changing things that we don't want. So at first, we're going to be a little bit monitoring those changes. So when they come through, the design team will be able to say, that's a good one, push it forward. And we'll see how that goes, see if we can just hand over the maintenance of the site totally. Another big change. In the last phase of Toep, we talked about e-portfolios. E-portfolios will be a thread throughout the entire project. So in the very first module, it's going to be a 5-week MOOC. The first module, first week, is going to be about lifelong learning. In that first thing, you're going to create an e-portfolio to start to showcase your professional identity, your digital footprint. We talk about the importance of those in lifelong learning. And then as you go through the next few weeks, the next section will be on communication and collaboration. Hopefully you are exploring the activities. So if you're going to maybe partner with a colleague, you might explore collaboration spaces. So you learned a little bit about how to use a Hangout. You might somehow create an artifact of that Hangout, maybe a screen grab or whatever, and put it into your e-portfolio. And then at the end, when you summarize your learning, you're going to just polish off that e-portfolio. We will still have all of the badges. There will also be, I kind of have to change this last bullet where it says freely available to all. Kinda, sorry about that. So it'll be a Coursera-based MOOC, so anybody in the world can go and register. But if you're familiar at all with Coursera, if you want their certification, that piece of paper that they give you, there is a charge, and it's about $50. But you can go through everything without getting that certificate. We are going to try to make it. In some MOOCs, they can choose, you can't even go through a quiz unless you pay for that certified option. We're going to try to keep it. You can go through everything, but you just won't get the paper at the end. But freely available to all applies more to anybody from SUNY. So I apologize for anybody who's not at SUNY. Through Coursera's partnership with SUNY, we will be able to whitelist all of the campuses. So if you're from Buff State or Nassau or wherever, you'll be able to earn that Coursera certificate. And those are becoming more and more sought after by employers. But in addition, you'll have, even if you don't pay for that certificate, you'll be able to earn the badges. Your faculty, your staff, your students at your campus will be able to go through and earn badges. We're trying to figure out how do we motivate the students to do this. Again, suggestion box. Just trying to integrate it into coursework might be one idea. So this is very light, non-styled version of what the Coursera site will look like, but it'll be SUNY branded, one of the first, I think, SUNY sponsored MOOCs. Many are maybe a Buff State MOOC, or I'm from UB, and UB always wants to be known that they're part of this, but it is a SUNY endeavor because it's been created with people across the institution because of the Chancellor Zimpher's call for systemness. She's the one that put the funding out there. This is the wiki that is in development. It's kind of like just embedded. If you're familiar with iframe technology, the wiki will be embedded within Coursera. Oops, typo. That's maybe a new word. Wide-long learning, or was another life-wide learning, was a term I heard recently, and that sounded interesting as compared to lifelong. But you'll be able to go through the different modules. Here you'll be able to select the objective. What are you trying to achieve? Maybe you want to foster critical thinking, or maybe you want to enhance efficiency. So the first three most popular or most rated resources will come up at the top, and then there'll be a show more button that says, okay, there's other things that people have added. You can look at them all if you want. But as they get more high in the recognition, they'll come up higher. And then there's other ways that you can, navigate. So people may still want to go, I want to learn about video. So they might not want to go through, okay, what objectives do I need to figure out to teach the video? Because once you get to foster critical thinking, it'll maybe show you, use a citation management tool. But there will also be a menu that shows you how to get directly to each of the tool categories. There's also going to be tags. So if something is got mentions about accessibility, that'll be tagged. If something talks about the e-portfolio, that'll be tagged. If it's applicable to flipped or online learning, that'll be tagged. And we'll probably put a search box on here too. So here is where we'll mention an image of a logo of the tool, or an image, the name of the tool, and then some narration about it. So this is our timeline. Again, if you want to keep up on the timeline, if you want to be notified, go to the Toep site and share your information through there. But we are aiming at fall 2017 as our planning and design stage. The wiki programming just kind of has become fleshed together. We're designing videos. Past awardees, we're asking them to kind of do some of the narration in each of the sections. We're working on that, just basic scripting. We hope to get a pilot launched by end of December. Actually, January 4th is when UB's winter session starts. So we have a couple faculty who said, yes, I want to have my students involved in this during the winter session. It'll have to be condensed. The winter session is 3 weeks and the MOOC is 5 weeks, so we'll have to figure that part out. But we're going to do a small pilot. We'll also be calling on past Toep participants, if any of you, to see if you would like to help us pilot this so that you can say there's a grammar, there's a typo, this doesn't work, this is old. And then once we run that pilot, actually I should change that. The official launch, we're aiming for March. I did this extra slide quickly, so I apologize. So the Coursera MOOC should be available in March and available to anybody who would like to take it. If you have any comments, if you would like to learn more, we've just developed this hashtag EMTechMOOC. The name of the MOOC is Exploring Emerging Technologies for Lifelong Learning and Success. We do have a Gmail account. You could be the first person that contacts us through this Gmail account. But let us know. And you all have my card, so contact me in that way directly also. So I have just a couple minutes for questions. I'm happy to answer questions anytime you see me in the hall. But I should have left a few more minutes. But any questions, comments, or suggestions? Yes, Donna?
When you run 5 weeks, are you going to be doing a set 5 weeks, or can anybody jump in at any time?
The way Coursera has been working is that the cohorts start on the same day, and if somebody does want to jump in, they let them. So it's not going to be mandatory that you start on the first. If you don't complete in those 5 weeks or you fall behind, they give you a message to say, oh, do you want to go into the next cohort? Do you want to go into the next one? So you never fail, you just go into the next one. Other questions, comments, suggestions? Hungry for lunch? Okay, I appreciate everyone's time, and I hope to see you all in the MOOC. Thanks.